I, of course, don't see gold or silver as a bubble at all. I see debt and fiat as the bubble that's in a process of deflation. The Bank of America calling gold and silver bubblish, the Kospi, but quite comfortable with US equities at the current levels. Our primary macro view is more upside for gold. So people will say, but hold on a minute, Francis, we had this big ass sell-off, we were at 5,600 and then bang, we got this rejection. And of course, it closed lower as well. It was a red candle. I mean, we all speculate on how much gold China truly has, but I can tell you all black gold that is being subsistence mined ends up via Saudi, UAE into Hong Kong and Shanghai. As someone who's living in Africa, there's a permanent bid on that and the refining process and taking it. They've set about using gold as a trade-based vaulting system for their trade system. So they're going to establish vaults for counterbalancing. Millions have been stripped out. There was a lot going on in terms of government hires. Look what's happening here on the gold-silver ratio. I, of course, don't see gold or silver as a bubble at all. I see debt and fiat as the bubble that's in a process of deflation. I know you want to touch on the Dixie and the dollar, so I won't steal too much thunder until you're ready. But yeah, as an opening statement, that's what we're sniping and that's what we're observing. Bank of America calling gold and silver bubblish and the Kospi, but quite comfortable with US equities at the current level. So there you have
it. Yeah, that sounds very backwards. So let's start off with gold and silver. Could you pull up the charts and let's look at gold, where we're at? We had a big blow off top back in January, the end of January. I'm sure folks are wondering, okay, did we top? Are we leveling out, building the base again? So just curious in what you're seeing on the charts.
Yes, good question, by the way. And I think the charts are the place to get the answer for that as well. So I'll start a share. Just before I do, I want to highlight that people should remember there's a macro. There's a difference between leverage trading short-term and investing for the macro. And so time frames, you behave differently on leverage. A lot of other things apply. But if we just go to the investment point hypothesis in gold, our primary macro view is more upside for gold. So people will say, but hold on a minute, Francis, we had this big ass sell-off, we were at 5,600 and then bang, we got this rejection. And of course, it closed lower as well. It was a red candle. It was one of the first in a while. And at one point, you're as low as that. So technical analysis, macro technical analysis is our forte. It's one of our unique USPs. That would be typically called a shooting star. And it is a bearish candle on a weekly time frame. So let me just clarify. We're looking at gold. We're on the dollar. We're on the weekly time frame. And that qualified as a shooting star. Now, there's only one way you negate a real shooting star, and that's where you deliver the exact corollary to the same degree of volatility candle. So what is the corollary or the countervailing force of a shooting star? Well, it allows for the ongoing downside initially. So you closed here, you opened here, and you traded immensely down on that wick. So that is still the impact of the shooting star. However, if you're to negate it, what you need is a similar scaled reversal. So here was the upside reversal, and there is your downside reversal. Go past your open and close the week higher up on the week with a green body. So what you've actually got here, and we called this after 2 days. Many people saying, but how can you say that on the weekly candle? The weekly candle wasn't even finished yet. And our goal is to be early. You can't say anything about the future with any great confidence, but our expectation, given the volatility and the rebound, at that time, this was a slightly red candle and it was roughly here, but it had a big hammering wick on it that already highlighted quite a high element of rejection up to here. In the end, at the end of the week, it had gone all the way up to there. So we turned out lucky or accurate for forecasting that. And it is a negation of the volatility reversal to the upside to have an equal, similar, and proportionate volatile rejection of the lows to a similar degree. So the new week, which has just started here, and it's this little abandoned baby over here that's tiny because we've only 2.5 days in. I know you guys on the US side are only waking up, so to you it'll be 2 days. We expected reflation. So we are post slap in the face events of volatility. We have been in the camp for quite a while now. 2 days into the previous week, we were already saying our suspicion is this is going to be reflation, and that was validated by the weekly close. And what have you seen? You're seeing a green candle mildly up on the big time frames. So that's the big time frames. I've actually said quite a lot. So before I drill down any lower, I'll just hand back to you.
So I'm curious in your perspective
And
there too.
further to which I would highlight the debasement of oil, that when we first called short oil, long gold, it was $87, having been as high as 129. It's now at 69. I think my apologies, not even 69, but it looks like it might target 69 if that break up to the upside occurs. So maybe call it even 70. The costs for miners have actually gone down during this period as their top line has blown up to the upside. So you are talking about a cash hemorrhaging corporations here, and they look absolutely fantastic. And you asked about the gold-silver ratio, and it's a great question, Daryl. So I want to take you back straight into the weeds of that and say, you remember what I was showing you in the gold chart with the shooting star that had the intra-week reversal. It had a body like that was red, and it had that huge wick that did that. And how I said the only way you negate the bearishness of that is you have a squaring up and an equally strong reversal to the downside like this.
So silver, I want to touch on silver and copper. So recently, a friend of mine had texted me because we were talking about the $12 billion stockpile of critical minerals, and obviously silver, copper being two of those. And then he texted me an article and shows that China invested $500 billion in their power generation and things of that nature. And so he was like, yeah, this makes this little 12 billion look like peanuts. And so just curious in your take on that. And then also, what is silver telling us? Obviously, it's a monetary metal. We have this government stockpile dynamic as well as industry and such. And so just curious on your perspective there.
Yes. So China generally has been far more serious about its investment. It's almost like America kind of under this Trump regime have suddenly woken up and then making these token gestures because of the news. It's almost like, you see, we're now starting to act too. But the amounts are trivial. I think America mentioned 12 billion. China has been doing for multiple years, decades, substantial investments and growing soft power where it is not so offensive, but they are actually real movers and shakers in Africa and in all sorts of areas without being overly bombastic and domineering and working with existing governments. So in some senses, they've been smart. They've been slowly catch the monkey in that sense, in terms of how they've gone about ensuring supply. And of course, in the Middle East and various other places where they've been cooperative, good partners, whilst America seems to have lurched into suddenly waking up and actually doesn't have the means, in truth, to do it on the full scale that China has been accumulatively doing for an extended period. I mean, we all speculate on how much gold China truly has, but I can tell you all black gold that is being subsistence mined ends up via Saudi, UAE into Hong Kong and Shanghai. As someone who's living in Africa, there's a permanent bid on that and the refining process and taking it. That's not what's being bought officially declared through futures for delivery where you can track and all of this. This is even on the what I'd call the dark metals level. Mm-hmm. They've been stacking and they must have an absolute fortune. And they've set about using gold as a trade-based vaulting system for their trade system. So they're going to establish vaults for counterbalancing. So they're going to go to a backed currency. It's not about the yuan. It's backed by gold. People really don't care what the piece of paper says if it's backed by gold. It can have a Chinese face on it. If it's backed by gold, it'll be worth more than, Abraham Lincoln or Benjamin Franklin or anybody else. Which isn't. So they're winning in terms of the long game. and the hegemon has an uneasy role, and this has Death of Vampire vibes to it, and that's what Ray Dalio, who you also mentioned, has been warning of. The fullness, though, is that the debasement in dollar is going to cause rampant inflation. We called the labor lies during the Biden administration, and that's largely been accepted now. Millions have been stripped out. There was a lot going on in terms of government hires for various agendas that are BlackRock related. You name it, they did it. And these were sold. Oh, but it's a red hot economy. We didn't have, we didn't have a recession. It's a red hot economy. So that's been shown to be a lie. Now with this relative underperformance of the dollar, don't forget it lost 10, 11% to the euro. It was down about 15% to the Hungarian forint and 40% to the ruble, by the way, who's supposed to be a sanctioned nation, who seems to be doing extraordinarily well, selling their oil via intermediaries or taking a cut. You're still probably getting it. The only beneficiary is Europe, who's paying much more for their energy and is therefore no longer making the profits they made for the pipeline being shot and everything else. So the whole grand game is going ahead. Your question was also about copper. And the one thing I'll say is all commodities will go up, but your monetary metals, because this is a fiat and debt debasement crisis, the biggest winners are the monetary metals in that. So many people want to sprawl out of gold into other things because they're going up. And I always say, yes, copper is going up, and I will show that chart to you. Well, look what's happening here on the gold-silver ratio. We were talking about the gold had that shooting star, and that's actually a very bearish candle, especially on a weekly time frame. That's quite a long one. You had that shooting star. And then I said, one of the only real ways that you can put it back into bed and go back into the reflation and upside is if you have a hammer to the downside of equal scale, then you continue back up. In other words, you had a blow off, you had a collapse, you had an overshoot to the downside. Now you're bouncing back, you negate that. Well, you've had very similar here. You've got a very strong hammer, which is actually bearish for precious metals. The gold-silver ratio going up, it's actually generally bearish. It doesn't have to be hugely bearish. Gold can sometimes go up in that environment and silver can be flat or mildly down. But what we're now getting in terms of this month is you've had a reversal on the follow through here, and it looks like this green candle is coming back down. This green body may end for the month, and bear in mind we're only the 10th. So again, I'm calling early, but you're probably going to have a reversal, having run up to back into the 70s. And we expected this because you ran the key level of 50 on the gold-silver ratio. You ran it to the downsides, you got a snapback rally, you ran all the way back into the 70s, and now you're coming slowly your way back down. So this is just a period of volatility, a little bit blow-offy. I'll move it on to the weekly time frame because when I showed you those shooting stars, it was actually on weekly. So you had quite a big surge up, but then you see this wick has come a long way down, and actually you're trading red here. So I think the reflation of precious metals post a little bit of a slap in the face for doing too much too soon is very much back on the cards. So dip buying is part and parcel of this. Please bear in mind, this is not the same as my leverage trading that I'm sometimes talking about on YouTube and that we update our community on, which has been very profitable. So as an investor and a stacker, we say keep stacking. There's no way you're anywhere near the highs at this juncture.